सितारे टीवी देखने वालों को सभी को जागृति का प्यार भरा नमस्कार। वेरी टैलेंटेड पर्सन इज़ विथ मी टुडे। सितारे पे हम कोशिश करते हैं कि ऐसे लोगों से मिलवाए जिससे आप सोच भी नहीं सकते कि मिल पाएंगे। आई हैव वेरी टैलेंटेड गॉर्जियस, भारत की शान बोले जाते हैं वैसे मल्लिका साराभाई विथ अस। मल्लिका जी, दिस इज सितारे टीवी। लॉट ऑफ पीपल आर गोइंग टू वॉच यू टुडे इन यूएसए। वेलकम टू सितारे टीवी।
Thank you very much.
Mallika ji, you have been coming to US on and off, and आपने अपनी कला से बहुत सारों को दिल लुभाया है. The most amazing thing is very few people in US know that you have performed practically every country or more than 100 countries, which you told me last time. And there is one character which you have portrayed in a very different context, that is Draupadi. Tell us about your international show. How did you think of bringing this kind of characters, which are very strong women? And last time I had opportunity to ask you why Draupadi.
Very different things. One is between 1984 and 89-90, there was a huge international production of the Mahabharata, directed by the great theatre director Peter Brook. Yeah. We were people from 22 countries, and it was first in French, and it was a 11-hour production. And then it was in English, then it became a film, and then it became a television program for BBC Channel 4. And that toured everywhere. And Peter Brook's idea was that the Mahabharata is a story of humanity. It's not a story of India. And that the minute an Indian interprets it, it's only either Indians or people interested in India who go to see it.
Correct.
And that humanity is missing out on an incredible epic.
Correct.
So he decided to do it so that people who are followers of Peter Brook, people who are followers of theatre, would all go to see this epic. Not only Indophiles who are already convinced that the Mahabharata is a great story. So that production got a lot of attention. It was in various strange venues, like in airport hangars and in Los Angeles. We were at the Oakwood studio for 2.5 months. We were in flower markets in Spain, but Peter would convert each into a venue for the Mahabharata. But having done that and seen the kind of effect that my interpretation of Draupadi was having on women across the world, very, very different women, sort of trendy, young university students in Paris, and Aboriginal women in Australia, and Danish and Scandinavian women. I thought that I had gone in to the Mahabharata as a Bharatanatyam Kuchipudi dancer on one side, and as somebody deeply committed to social change. And it was during my work with the Mahabharata with Peter Brook that I realized that my art could be the most important language for change. And that in some senses changed the trajectory of my work. So that since then in my own work I have interpreted most Indian women, mythological icons, historical icons, because I feel that by retelling the story from a different perspective, from a woman's perspective, which is never told, one can understand the depth of that character.
Correct.
And understand the kind of whitewashing that has happened because of patriarchy over several thousand years.
So true.
So in my own work, like I have a piece called Sita's Daughters, which I have done a lot in the United States. I reinterpret Sita from Sita's point of view. How does she look at her life, and what does she have to say about people using her either to get scores even, or people using her to become great or whatever. And I've interpreted many of these characters, Draupadi being one of them, in my own work as well as this.
Coming to a different aspect of your life, you belong to a family which every Indian is proud of. Your father was the initiator of the nuclear energy in India. Dr. Vikram Sarabhai. Everyone, in fact, a lot of people would think that I wish we could see him, like me. Your mother, Mrinalini Sarabhai, she's an epitome of there's no word. And you inherited a great art, great assets from them. Was it, this is a very Ghisapita question, but I want to know from you, after spending so many years, how easy for you it was to acquire that art and promote and get recognition, or how challenging it was to sustain it? Because it's easy to put a foot in the door, but then eventually you need to prove yourself, So how challenging it was to sustain that expectations and your delivery of performance?
Parents were incredible people. They never made either my brother Kartikeya or me feel that they expected us to be something in their fields. They always made us feel that we needed to blossom and that they were always there. If we fell flat on our face, Amma, like a lioness, would lick us whole again.
Wow.
We also never felt competitive. We never felt pressurized because they were very, very famous. It was always as though this is what I've achieved and it's achieved for my love for you.
So nice.
It was never, "Dekh, maine itna sab kiya, ab tu karke dikha." It was never that sort of thing. So there was no pressure. I didn't think I wanted to be a dancer because I had seen the kind of hard work that goes in and day out. My mother would have a septic foot and she had a show, she would do it. I have seen her come between items and be injected with penicillin and go back on stage. So for me, it wasn't glamorous. It was very, very hard work. And it wasn't till I had done an MBA, done a PhD, done all sorts of things, wanted to do this, that, and the other, that I woke up one morning saying, I want to dance. So it was a late decision. I had always studied at Draupadi. And when I went on my first international tour, I was going to many of the same cities and same theatres where Amma had gone.
Wow.
And my concern was, oh gosh, I hope I don't ruin her name. So it wasn't that she was pressurizing me, but I was so desperately proud of her that I wanted to keep up that legacy and let people think that, I am worthy of carrying that name. And I have to tell you a wonderful thing that happened in Rome on my first tour. There's a Teatro Olimpico, and Il Messaggero is the most important newspaper in Rome. And there was a critic who had seen Amma 11 years previously and came to see me. And the next morning wrote that when you see Mrinalini dance, you think of Shiva, very austere, very inward looking.
Okay.
And when you see Mallika dance, you think of Krishna, very playful, very outwardly. And I thought, more than a compliment, it's a very astute reading of Amma as a person and me as a person. And I thought, how incredible that somebody in Italy who has seen this, has studied enough about Indian mythology to make this difference. Yeah. So it was very exciting, and Amma always encouraged us to search for our own language. Because I was in Darpana, I had studied theatre and I had studied puppetry, I had studied music, I was singing vocally. So when I started post-Mahabharata in 1990, creating my own work, I broke away from using only dance. And my first piece, Shakti, the Power of Women, had me singing and acting and learning martial arts to interpret Rani Lakshmibai of Jhansi. And Amma used to always tease and say, Joy, मैं तने કેટલી સારી ટ્રેન કરી છે મને આવી મારી માએ ટ્રેન કરી તો હું પણ આવું બધું કરત ને.
So nice.
So it was always, and I see both my children pushing that further because they have been trained in other things, and it's a legacy that is a growing legacy. It's not a stultified legacy. In the climate in which the arts are not sponsored and supported in India, running a not-for-profit like Darpana is very, very difficult. Because we don't want any student to not learn because she or he can't afford it.
Wow.
And this has been a dharma for us. So there are lots and lots of students coming from very weak families economically who study. And our main fees are also 1,200 rupees a month.
Wow.
And that doesn't even pay for the salary of one guru. So support is needed, I always say to people that, you call Mallika Sarabhai to perform, but we have to train the next generation and find the new talent. And that takes time and money, and it takes gurus who are dedicated and well paid. It takes for an establishment. You need to give them the time to present them. And that doesn't come out of love. It requires financial support, which we find very difficult in India.
ICN Art Forum is bringing you here. I heard from founder member of ICA that you've been coming here regularly, and it's a privilege to see you this time. Of course, I don't know how I missed all this while, but when you perform in US for different causes, what is the classic difference you see between US crowd, not in terms of their behavior, their reaction or your acceptance? Because in India everybody knows Bharatnatyam. At least they know what Bharatnatyam is about. They know you, Malik. No, at least they know what is.
I think they know.
Yeah, actually that is correct, because and then they know Mallika Sarabhai. There is a lot of star value there. So people, and then they know you so well for such a long time. In US, how do they accept you as against India in terms of your performance? So as an artist, do you get that satisfaction of performing, and which is the area where you get the satisfaction on 10 level when you perform?
On 10 level, I get satisfaction when I'm rehearsing. I don't have to care about where the lights are. I don't have to be dressed up. I don't have any restrictions. I don't think, oh God, the organizer is going to give a long speech and bore everybody to death. I don't have to think of anything. So 10 on 10 is in rehearsals, when you can freely dance. You're working with musicians you've worked with for years. You are challenging them. You are challenging your dancers. There's no fear of falling flat on your face or your costume falling off or any of that. So that's 10 on 10. No, there's just sheer ananda of experimenting and challenging yourself.
Correct.
Okay, so when you say the US, are you talking of US Desis or US?
Everyone, overall.
Very different.
Yeah.
Very, very, very different. This tour is primarily organized by Indian organizations, but that's not the norm for me. The norm is that I come and I'll dance at Vassar, I will dance for Yale, I will dance for the Brooklyn Academy of Music. So it's not an Indian audience. For me, the challenge is to be able to repackage what I know is the strength of Indian dance. Right. Which is that our culture is not up in a museum and we don't have to dust it out and show it. It's a living culture. Most people say Bharatanatyam, the tradition ended 200 years ago. It didn't.
No.
Nor is the tradition that I put Bharatanatyam on roller skates, which I have seen done here. There is an integral growth that is very exciting. And the performance we are doing on Saturday, in fact, is taking the very, very essential language of Bharatanatyam, but talking about things that matter to us today, that should be mattering to you as well. We are talking of gender violence, we are talking of global warming, we are talking of the destruction of the earth through greed, we are talking of gender identities. These are subjects that most people are concerned about or should be concerned about. And most young people have as part of their lives that they can or may not be able to talk to their families about.
Wow.
So when you then put that, then people understand that, my God, this is a living language. This is not a dead language that says, Shiva, where are you? I wait for you. I long for you. That is the grammar. That is what was. But that doesn't limit me. That, in fact, gives me the power and the strength to let my imagination talk about whatever I want to talk about. And to show dance as that living being that can talk of Superman, if you ask me to, or Goldilocks or whatever. That's the power of the language. The other limitation is that of an artist, if she or he can't break through.
Yeah.
And I think that is what I find very exciting to share, both with Indian audiences and non-Indian audiences. When I'm with non-Indian audiences in schools and so on, I usually ask one of them to come up and tell me a story, and I dance it in Bharatanatyam. And when they're telling me Spider-Man, and I'm showing it in Bharatanatyam, you should see the transformation of their faces, that they can't believe that this can happen. And then their entire attitude towards Indian dance changes, towards India changes, because suddenly a new world has opened up, a world that will talk to them at their level, in their language. And I think this for me is the greatest excitement.
Wow, what I'm talking to Mallika Sarabhai, Pride of India, and if you're Gujarati, I don't have to say who she is. Just few questions before we close this interview. Mallika ji, you do Bharatnatyam, Kuchipudi. For a general person, for us it is dancing, and we watch you doing mudras. We may not know. Once I had attended a concert where somebody said that just watch it, even if you can't watch it as Bharatnatyam or Kuchipudi, or you don't know this Rag Yaman when you're listening, just watch and feel the event. Like, don't technically judge it.
Just go with
Let it, yeah, and accept it and digest it. And you happen to tell me that your events are have subtitles. How does it come through? Like, because we see a lot of funny kind of translation back in Bollywood movies, but then you when you do translation and you say that this Bharatnatyam speaks a very different language, not necessarily which is coming up from thousands of years, very different subject, freedom, a lot of wisdom, serenity. How does those title and idea and presentation comes through? So how do you package it?
I created a piece in 2008-9 called Sampradaya, which was a revisit in India to traditional bhajans as I knew them, just a manjira and a dholak, not a 25-piece orchestra going ti-di-di-di-di-di-di, because to me that takes away from the bhajan. And when I heard these Sampradaya bhajans, I was so excited that I created an entire dance piece celebrating the music.
Wow.
And then we brought it to the States. And I thought, the words are so beautiful. It's a pity not to go into the next 2 or 3 levels of comprehension. If people want to look at them, let them be there. And I found as many Indians thanking me for this as possible. I mean, last week when we were in Los Angeles, most of the Indians came back and said, what a relief that we know what it is, and then we can look at your interpretation when you know what you are saying. Okay. So when you show Krishna in 6 different ways, we know what you are saying. Okay. And I think, yes, it's a very beautiful visual movement, visual medium, but it's a pity to remain at that stage. It's now time to go into the philosophy of it, into the search that it is. And that's why I think subtitles help. Yeah. Hi, you're watching me, Mallika Sarabhai, on Sitaarre TV.
Mallika ji, for you, me, as I told you, you're a woman of a movie. And people who don't know, watch Katha. She was one of the most beautiful women in Katha. I talked to Dipti ji the other day. She said, Mallika looks so gorgeous, Jagruti. She's known for her dressing, saris, her contemporary jewelry. Is there any chance of coming to golden or silver screen, what you did in Gujarati movies or in Hindi movies? And why did you disappear?
I did Hindi movies at a time when moviedom was dirty, and it turned me off. The way people behave, the way people talk turned me off, so I quit. There was a dance director. I did 3 films which were earlier than the earliest New Wave films. None of them got released. They got released in the club circuit. I got awards for them, and I got very frustrated. And then I was asked to do 1 commercial movie, and on the first day of the shoot, the dance director asked me to move my boobs. So I picked up a chair, broke it on his head, and quit the industry. Then I went back to Ahmedabad, and the Gujarati industry was just starting, and I did Maina Gurjari, which you were talking about, and stuck there for 3 years, and then those movies were also getting to be very bad. And I went off to do other things. But I would love to do a film. I still love acting. I still love movies. I still think movies are the greatest possibility for bringing change in India. And I would love to do it. I'm just either going to produce it myself or wait for the right opportunity.
People who are listening may want to come up with some funding and make a movie. Sure. And I'm sure you still can do the bestest important role out of the movie. So once again, this is Mallika Sarabhai. I love that last name, Sarabhai. And very honestly, this family has just given to India. We are so grateful. Many a times when I talk about Amitabh Bachchan, I say we should be thankful that we have lived in this era. So I want to thank you and your family, that thank God that we lived in an era where these people were with us. I don't think the coming generation will know how much your father has contributed, but whenever the history will be read, whenever you'll go back to nuclear energy or Bharatnatyam Kuchipudi, Mallika Sarabhai, Vikram Sarabhai, and your mom, of course, Amma. Now I think I'll forget her name. I'll call her Amma too. So Mrinalini Sarabhai will be remembered with lot of dignity, respect, and lot of love. Thank you, Mallika ji, for joining. And I want to sing that song, Sarabhai versus Sarabhai. So that was one I asked them. I said, did they steal that name from your last name? I didn't get answer for them, but I'm sure it did. It did come from them. So thank you so much for joining, and looking forward to see you again and again and again like this.
Thank you very much. Thank you.